Welcome to Whining About Books, where I review a good book with a stiff drink in my hand. Tonight's review will be of The Night Will Be Long by Santiago Gamboa. I found this book at my local library for free, and if you know me, then you know I love a free book. I understand that all books at the library are free, but this is one you get to keep. No library card needed. They keep a carousel of books near the front entrance, and every time I go, I make sure to check and see if there is anything good, and I came out with this gem. Now grab your book if you have it, and grab your drink because I know you got it, and let's whine about books. Novelist, short story author, and journalist Santiago Gamboa was born in Colombia in 1965. His American debut, published by Europa in 2012, was the novel Necropolis, winner of the Otra Orilla Literary Prize. He is also the author of Night Prayers and Return to the Dark Valley. This novel was translated by Andrea Rosenberg from Spanish and Portuguese to English. It is a mystery thriller, although in my humble opinion, I don't think there was much thrill in it. I didn't find myself on the edge of my seat as much as I hoped I would. That did not take away from the story. I just had to make sure to adjust my expectations once I realized this truth. My drink of the evening is none other than a psychopath's wet dream, a gin and tonic. The main character, Julieta, is a big fan of gin, perhaps a little too much of a fan, and finds herself getting frisky with good old G&T many times throughout the book. I'm not a fan of gin myself, thanks to the taste and a night of poor judgment that led me to doing shots of gin.
My name is Eli Whitney, and I created the cotton gin.
And then promptly forgetting the rest of the evening. But here we go, diving into the forbidden elixir for the sake of a good book. Let's have a sip and bring back the non-memories of a night long forgotten. Okay, Julieta, I get it. That's not bad. This story starts with a young boy, Franklin, witnessing a gruesome crime scene. 3 vehicles are traveling when they are suddenly stopped and ambushed by a group of paramilitary fighters. Shots ring out, a grenade launcher appears, a helicopter comes out of nowhere and starts mowing people down. Then a pastor and 2 chicks exit one of the vehicles, climb into the helicopter, and take off. After the helicopter leaves, a group comes behind, cleans up the crime scene, dead bodies included, and leaves no trace of the crime. From there, we are introduced to our main characters. Julieta, the drunk, a journalist who is the true main character, Johanna, an ex-paramilitary who is Julieta's assistant and co-main character, and Edelson Yutsenyamai, I think that's how you say it, lead prosecutor, and the other co-main character. These 3 work to uncover the truth about this gruesome showdown, and as they do, it takes them throughout the country of Colombia, where the story takes place, and sends Julieta on a trip to French Guiana. As the mystery starts to unravel, we are quickly brought into a religious conspiracy of sorts. I say of sorts because what was revealed to be the conspiracy left me wanting. I enjoy mystery novels. I typically read through them fairly quickly because I'm so excited about the uncovering of the truth. I find myself thirsting for page after page, enjoying the twists and turns of where the story takes me. And that was something that I experienced about 3/4 of the way through the book. So early on, we are confronted with the religious aspects of this story. It involves 2 rival pastors, both charismatic in their own right, one more so than the other, Pastor Fritz and Pastor Fabinho Henriquez. Both of these men signify the worst things about the Christian faith. They both exploit vulnerable people in order to gain wealth and status, and they hide behind the words of the Bible that they twist so that they can manipulate those around them. As a Christian myself, I can say that there are many people like this today. In fact, the Bible warns us to have discernment and be wary of those who are wolves in sheep's clothing. We are told to know the word of God and to have discernment so that we can differentiate those who are truly preaching and living God's word from those who are using it for their own selfish gain. When these 2 individuals speak of God, it is like they're putting themselves in God's place. As a matter of fact, when they speak of how they made it to the position that they are in, all they do is speak about themselves with tiny sprinkles of Jesus mixed in. They are incredibly self-absorbed and look out only for themselves. Both men are obsessed with money and use it for their benefit and ever so humble task of planting churches. As this mystery is being solved, the mystery of the gunfight that takes place at the beginning of the book We are taken into the underground world of both churches. We first learn of Pastor Fritz's highly illegal dealings and later on in the story his bacchanal lifestyle full of drugs, liquor, sex, and blackmail. He is the more charismatic pastor of the two, and he holds these lectures that are meant to inspire his congregants. We are given an inside look into what these lectures are like. It seems that for him it is less about giving his parishioners heavenly direction and more about them giving him the validation and worship that he so desperately desires. Excuse me, I like to crunch ice. Toward the second half of the book, we are introduced to Fabinho Henriquez. I hope I'm saying that right. More tenderly known as Mr. F. He is Pastor Fritz's rival and the one who ordered the attack on Pastor Fritz, which we don't get the full confirmation of this fact until the last quarter of the book. If I sound frustrated by this, please believe that I am. For nearly 50 pages, we are saddled with the travels of Julieta, which was riveting in and of itself, and the rest of the time, Mr. F's musings on how he grew up and the man he currently is. This was probably my least favorite part of the novel, and I found myself reading just to get through it, instead of reading for the enjoyment of it. Mr. F is a gold miner and uses his money to fund his church planting endeavors, as well as employing ex-military and sicarios to carry out his ruthless deeds. Although he is a more muted individual than his magnetic counterpart, Pastor Fritz, his influence is just as strong. He believes himself to be doing the Lord's work by mining for gold and claims it is his love of God and desire to do the right thing, as he puts it. So once again, we have a pastor doing the complete opposite of what he claims to believe. That's a shocker. The mystery ended and the frustration began when I found out the reasoning behind their fighting. The two pastors, Mr. F and Pastor Fritz, were old business partners in Mr. F's early gold mining days. They had built a successful business together, illegally stealing and extracting gold from indigenous land. Pastor Fritz had been sleeping with Mr. F's girl, got her pregnant, and the two ran off together with the business earnings. To seal his betrayal with a kiss, Pastor Fritz had Mr. F framed for the entirety of their crimes and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Now, perhaps I went into this reading a little ahead of myself. I was expecting some deep underground, like religious cult behavior where they are looking to take over entire governments and countries, where they are looking to drug their entire congregation or something like that. I don't know. But at the heart of things, it just ended up being a squabble between the dude who stole your girl. And it is true, I may be reducing things down a bit, but maybe it's my fault for having too high of expectations. These crimes were uncovered by the three main characters, with a major focus being on Julieta. Julieta is a journalist, divorced mother of two, and most definitely a functioning alcoholic. Yes, she was a woman who handled her business and made sure that she thoroughly exposed the truth. But once the workday was done, honey, she would hit the bar and drink until she lost count. And when she drank, all of her desires, most sexual in nature, would bubble up to the surface. And let me just tell y'all, Julieta a freak. She nasty. And she likes it that way. At times she indulges in her fantasies. Thankfully, the author leaves out the details, and at other times she cages the wild beast that has been awakened by her consumption and instead falls asleep in a bathtub full of water or wakes up hungover, not able to recall the evening's happenings. Now, despite her obvious hangup, she is a phenomenal journalist who helps to propel the investigation by gathering the necessary information and getting up close and personal with both suspected parties. She doesn't let her fear stop her, but pushes it to the back burner so that her natural inclination to discover the ugly truth can help her get the job done. It is because of her and her assistant that the prosecutor, Hussein Yamai, was able to wrap up his investigation with a neat little bow. At least that's how I would have liked it to go, but you can't always get what you want. This wonderful crime-fighting trio has all the evidence they need to bring down Pastor Fritz and Mr. F. Yutsenyumai puts together a team to ambush Pastor Fritz at his apartment, where he is doing his most pastorly duty of throwing a drug and alcohol-fueled rager. It has everything one could want when doing the work of the enemy. Drugs and liquor, as we already covered, women to do with as you please, bodyguards to make sure you can sin in peace, crooked government officials, and real estate tycoons looking to make $1 off the backs of innocent churchgoers. When Yutsenyumai's team breaches Pastor Fritz's compound, they get everyone but Pastor Fritz and his lover. Through some terrible miracle, they were able to make their escape and avoid going to prison. Thankfully, and I use that term loosely, the author gives us another chance to perhaps get this swindler off the streets and into a prison cell. Pastor Fritz contacts Julieta and requests that she meet with him. And at this point, Pastor Fritz considers her a friend of sorts and wants one last visit with her before he takes off. But does this broad seize the opportunity? Absolutely freaking not. She talks with him, feeling all the sympathy she has for him in her body. Then she says goodbye. He was an orphan and he was misunderstood, blah, blah, blah. So here we are having to settle with a warrant for his arrest. I'm all for understanding why someone behaves the way they do, but I am not for letting this understanding excuse the guilty party. Ugh. And did my frustration stop there? I can say with 100% certainty that it did not. Remember the boy Franklin, the one who witnessed the entire crime? Well, throughout the book, he follows Julieta and Joanna all through Colombia, hoping these broads can help him find his mother, who sent him to live with his grandparents when he was only a few days old. Through Joanna's guerrilla connections, they find his mother, who is also ex-paramilitary, and helped arrange a day and time for them to meet. Now they're all at the airport waiting for her to walk through arrivals, and he chickens out and takes off the moment he sees her. Like he is gone, y'all. This boy risked his life to find his mother, and when the time came, he got scared and took off. Like, I just can't. So in my oh so humble opinion, this book left me wanting more. I wanted more action. I wanted more scandal. I wanted more justice. Now, of course, in the justice category, it has crossed my mind that perhaps this is what the author wanted. Maybe he wanted to show that crime doesn't always pay, especially in the religious sector. As for the action, there was plenty. There was the skirmish in the beginning, mini flashback of Joanna's guerrilla days, and even Sicarios carrying out hits. But it wasn't exactly gripping, and there was no point in which the main characters were in any real danger. I thought for sure, because of the circumstances that they were dealing with, that they would end up tied up, threatened, beaten, stabbed, something. Julieta rubbed elbows with both pastors, yet she was perfectly safe, and even Pastor Fritz took the utmost care of her. The scandal was to be expected. It wasn't as surprising or shocking as I was hoping it would be. It was almost commonplace, and that's sad to say, that something of this nature outside of the military-grade protection and weapons is seen so often in the religious world. Now, religion was not the only topic touched on in this book. Colombia and all that it comes with was heavily sprinkled throughout the book. The main characters often spoke about the political state of the country, crime, gangs, drugs, and economic status. It touched on the most grim parts of living in Colombia, but even more so, trying to survive while being immersed in it all. Beyond the grim, the author did not leave out the beauty of Colombia, though. Many times I found myself desiring to explore the very places he spoke about. The beauty he was able to convey despite a gruesome storyline was impressive. If I had to give this book a rating, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Although there were some highs to this story, it wasn't enough to blow my mind. There are parts where the dialogue seemed to drone on just a bit, and despite the crime being solved, the ending left me wanting. Franklin runs away. The pastors, of course, got away. That's the whole thing. Joanna's brother, who was also ex-paramilitary, gets kidnapped at the end and possibly killed. And we are left with Yutsenyumai looking into his kidnapping. It just felt like an extra little bit that had nothing to do with anything. I wanted this story to end on a good note, to feel some form of redemption for the last few chapters, but there was none. All in all, this book was good, but not great. I enjoyed it enough that I would not mind recommending it to another avid reader. And with that, I have completed my review and my drink. Oh, that ain't happening. I'll complete it off record. So join me next time as I whine about books. Julieta, girl, you crazy for downing these the way you did. Because, it's good though.